So, welcome to episode 15 of Life of Leadership in Lorain County. Before I get started with my special guest today, I want to thank my sponsors. First of all, BCT Alarm. That's Brian Jankowski. Brian has owned and operated BCT Alarms for a couple of decades. Brian is doing great work throughout the community with security, also with fire items on commercial properties. So if you need fire alarms installed, things of that nature, suppression issues, units, Brian is the one to contact. Also want to thank Gold Country, WOBL AM 1320 and 107.7 FM, and Cool Cats, WDLW AM 1380 and 98.9 FM. I also want to draw your attention to the banner that is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. If you text LEAD now, one word, to 440-294-6200, you'll be added to my distribution. So every time I do a new video, every time I post something, a new podcast, you will be included and notified. So go ahead and do that. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce you to our guest this week. Her name is Amy Taylor. Amy Taylor is the CEO of You Belong. Amy and I have had an opportunity to meet with each other a couple of times over the last year, and I felt that it was necessary to bring her on from a interview standpoint. So, Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So why don't we just dive right in? So talk to me about your journey. Prior to becoming the CEO of You Belong, walk us through your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a Master's of Science in Human Development from South Dakota State University with an emphasis in vocational rehabilitation. I'm a certified vocational rehabilitation counselor and a certified vocational evaluator. I have worked in the industry for over 10 years, and I have a daughter with a developmental disability. And so I come to the industry both with education and experience, but also with the understanding of the importance of knowing what it's like to be a family member and planning for a future of a family member with a disability, and knowing, what that feels like from both sides.
Yeah. So you started out and you worked on this side, right, with developmental issues with individuals, and then you decided to start your own company, You Belong, right?
Yes, absolutely. So throughout my professional career, I've held a number of different roles and had a lot of really wonderful professional development opportunities with professional organizations like the Northeast Ohio Rehabilitation Association, the Ohio Rehabilitation Association, as well as others, being able to adjunct at Kent State University. And a lot of my previous experience led itself to me being able to be in a position that I could take a leap of faith and be in a position that I could be closer to home and be more available to my family for doctor's appointments and IEP meetings, and really be able to focus on being happy and available for the things that really, truly, both as a mom and a wife, matter most.
Yeah. So you were you have a daughter with and you mentioned it to me once before. What exactly? What is the?
It's a genetic-based disorder. It's called DDX3X. Essentially, what happens is there's a deletion on the X chromosome that happens at formation, and it gets copied throughout her genetic composition. And so it creates delays in speech and motor skills. It impacts every person differently, very similar to autism in that way. But for her specifically, she is exceptionally happy. She's very joyful, but we have delays in speech and motor function and in intellect. And so for those reasons, we offer a lot of support and therapeutic services and have some extra wonderful attention and support through aides and special services through the Lorain City School District, and have been able to provide some great wraparound services for her.
And how old is she?
She is 7.
Okay, 7 years old. So here's a neat thing. So when I talk with business owners, a majority of the business owners talk to me, and they mention that they created the business not for themselves but for others. You're a perfect example of that, right?
Yes. Not only did we create this business because it's literally what we'll be living for our daughter, it's also what I'm trained to do. And it was just a recurring conversation in our household and with our professional colleagues that are now in business alongside me, that the simple answer should be that people with disabilities in our communities belong. They're part of our economic development. They're part of our social development, and they are part of our community. And there is no difference between a person with a disability and a person without a disability. And for those reasons alone, the answer is simple. You belong. Let's help find the place where you belong. And as we were thinking of a name for our business, we continuously just kept saying, how do we get this message across? How do we just tell people that that is the answer? That's the answer. That's our mission. That's our goal. And so finally, my husband and I looked at each other and we're like, that's it. Of course, that's it. We've been saying it for weeks. Like that is the name. And so that is ultimately how it became, because we want that message to be loud and clear, is that as human beings, we are here to create a place where you have the same sense of pride and joy and respect and dignity that I have in my job and you in your job. And it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or a mechanic or the person stocking shelves or the person picking up garbage or the person cleaning. Every single job is equally important. Every single job is equally valuable and equally important, because I promise that the CEO knows when their garbage isn't picked up. I promise that every CEO understands the value of every custodian cleaning their building. I promise that every person in a position of power has no power if the people below them on the typical hierarchy chain are not there supporting them. In our particular model, we often reference the common hierarchy chain that looks like a triangle as really being something that should be turned upside down, that leadership should be here to support the masses, not the masses supporting leadership. And for us, that is something that You Belong stands for, is that everybody is equally valuable in an organization, and that title and salary are the least important in terms of leadership qualities and being able to have an impact in a community as a whole.
I am taking some notes. Yeah, you're helping me create more questions. I love that. So talk to me specifically about what You Belong is doing right now in the community, how long you've been up and running, and what your focus is today.
You Belong has been actively providing services for just about 2 years now. We're just shy of our 2-year mark. We provide services to businesses to help them solve their workforce and hiring needs. We also provide services to individuals with disabilities who are looking to advance their career or start their career for the first time. If they have been unemployed for a period of time, we can address those needs as well through developing work experience, through resume and resource development, and then through helping them obtain and sustain employment over time. For businesses, we help with inclusion and diversity training. We assist with understanding reasonable accommodations. We also assist with training and supporting both management and staff in working with individuals with disabilities and helping alleviate the stigma of what it looks like to hire a person with a disability, as well as understanding that vast majority of the time reasonable accommodations cost less than $100. They are permanent and benefit the entire workforce and provide solutions for every employee, not just one employee.
Okay, so one of my bold statements, right? So I have a couple of bold statements. I don't like to make a lot of them because I used to, and now I realize I can't. But one of my bold statements is this: everybody is a leader. Everybody is a leader, right? We can be led positively. We can be led negatively. So I love this whole concept because I'm not so sure that we look at individuals with disabilities as leaders, right? So how do we change that mindset and look to them as leaders? You can look at me, right? I'm nearly 60 years old, so you know how we treated people with developmental issues back when I was young is a lot better, is a lot different. It's a lot better now. But now how do we take a look and then develop them as leaders or show others that they actually are leaders?
Right. So for me, particularly in talking about being a leader, I think a lot of times folks associate leadership and success as things that go hand in hand. And really, being a leader is not necessarily defined by a position or a position title or a salary base. It's not defined by the things that are material. Being a leader is defined by character. It's defined by integrity. It's defined by having grit. It's defined by working hard for something of value to you and achieving that thing of value. And oftentimes that thing of value is not something material. It's something working towards a goal and achieving that. Even if that goal is for one person being able to afford their first month's rent independently without public support. That in of itself is success. That demonstrates leadership. It demonstrates character and integrity and that grit. And it demonstrates it on a level that oftentimes people take advantage of and take for granted that that person had to work so hard for that particular piece of their life. And so leadership is, for me, not necessarily defined by anything career related. It's defined by the type of person you are and what you do with that. Leadership is the qualities about building people up and building people up not at the expense of others. Being able to be a positive influence in someone's life and being able to be a cheerleader for them without that being at the expense of another person.
Yeah, I often engage at a local restaurant here where there is an individual with disabilities that is in charge of keeping the place clean, and I am amazed at the fact that this individual shows up, this individual does the work, and I really try to reach out to let them know how much I appreciate what they're doing. Right, that it is such an important part of this company's it's a restaurant, this restaurant's cleanliness, and this individual does a great job.
Mm-hmm. I think the other part about developing leadership, particularly in folks who still associate leadership being tied to a job title or a salary range, is that understanding that a leadership-oriented culture really starts with teaching others to hold their own head high, and regardless of their position, regardless of their salary or title, and be proud of who they are and what they do well, and be proud of sharing that with others, and celebrating the people around them, and understanding that it's the ability to bring joy and pride and building others up that demonstrates that leadership ability. It is really, for me, a relentless willingness to work towards the greater good. And that even on the absolute toughest of days, that no matter how small the win, that it's something that you're willing to celebrate. That even on the darkest of days, when everything feels like it's going wrong, that you celebrate the wins and you intentionally look to the good.
Yeah, I love celebrate others, great joy, celebrate the wins. I look at individuals that have a hard time celebrating wins. Mm-hmm. They check something off the box of here's what I've got to do. I've done it. And now what's the next thing on the list? And don't take time to actually celebrate those wins. And what it just becomes an endless pursuit of ... whatever that endless pursuit is. Any thoughts on that or comments on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of thoughts as I kind of sort through them here for myself. The endless pursuit of that kind of ... thought is that there's supposed to be an endless pursuit of everything, right? We have, in my personal opinion, we have this really bad habit in US culture of having to have everything all at the same time, right? You have to have the best job and the perfect house and the best car and the picture perfect family and all of these things together all at the same time. And life is really much more like a soundboard, that when you turn one area of volume up, another area is going to fall back, and that you cannot maintain max volume in all areas at the same time. That's not sustainable. That's not something that is feasible. And understanding that there are things that have to give, and really the only failure is forgetting what really matters. And the only failure is forgetting that the meaning of the work that we do isn't necessarily just achieving money or the most billable dollars or anything like that. It's for the meaning of the failure is to forget to continuously improve, is to forget to work towards joy and bringing joy to other people's lives. And that for us, that pursuit of this never-ending success is working towards improvement. And even the most marginal of improvement is success. And if you win that day, then it sets the ground and the foundation to be able to win the next day. And our purpose is to improve the lives and the businesses and the communities that we serve. And the only failure is forgetting why that matters.
I love how you look at life as a sounding board. It really paints an awesome picture there. Yeah. So let's talk about the U.S. culture, right? Let's dive into let's dive into that problem. Again, the people that I talk to, it's almost people that have identified that they don't want the culture to manage them, that they want to manage their lives, understand that they don't have to be driving around with the most expensive sports car. Yet we've created a culture, like you point out, where everybody needs to have the best, and they need to have the best now. Is there a way that we can change that culture?
I think that as we work towards actively not pursuing perfectionism and work towards pursuing what ultimately have kind of in the last few years become my own personal core values, and subsequently some of our businesses' core values, is that you have to be kind first. And even my 5-year-old son, I can tell him what comes first, and he'll say kindness comes first. Above all else, be kind first. You can be angry and still be kind. You can be sad and still be kind. And part of being kind is being human, and understanding that being human and being upset and frustrated and disappointed and vulnerable and all of those things are also what make you valuable as a human being. And that gives you room to do your best and to acknowledge your growth and to acknowledge these other things that we're talking about without having this pursuit of perfectionism and without having to feel disappointed of not having it all at the same time, and without having to have this feel of failure of not having it all at the same time at level 10 at the very best in comparison to your neighbors or the person down the street or, the person driving a Mercedes, because they're their best is different than your best, and your best is all that matters.
So, okay. So core values, you brought up number one in your family, it's kindness.
Yes.
Be kind first. What are your other core values?
So our top three really are be kind, be human, and do your best. Kindness comes first in our world because of the world that we live in and the work that we do. You can still give difficult news or sad news or upsetting news and do so with kindness. It doesn't mean you have to be rainbows and sunshine all of the time, because that's not possible. We're human. That's point two. It just means that you do so with dignity and respect, and understanding that behind the person that you're talking to, or the person on the other end of the phone or the computer screen, is also human, and they have feelings and varying, things that are happening in their life, and you need to be understanding of that. And as a result, understand that your responsibility is to deliver that news or that information in a way which you would feel good if you had to receive it.
Yeah. So, okay, we're going down this path here. So, I coach track at Brookside High School. I'm the shot and disc coach. And yesterday, it was a snow day, believe it or not, in April. We can't go outside. The kids are on vacation, but we can't go outside to work out. So what I decided to do, because it's hard to do shot and disc work inside because you can't really throw shot and disc inside. So what I did is I brought a collection of videos and walked the throwers through the videos that really the videos that we could really break down and take a look at. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Right. What do we need to focus on from technique? And you can focus on minute parts of technique, or you can focus on maybe 3 or 4 different parts of technique. Okay. So my 2 senior throwers, great kids, 2 senior guys. They're great kids. They're great throwers. And after we had this conversation, they're technicians. They really work hard to be perfect, right? Perfectionist. And so much so that I believe that it gets into their mind when they're in competition. So that's what I believe. I wanted to find out what they believe. So we engaged in a conversation. And my one senior thrower, his name is Adam. Adam said, "Coach, I think what I need to do is I need to do me, right? I need to be me." And the other one chimed in and said, "Coach, I get focused on throwing and I become somebody else. Whereas every time I hit a new record, it's because I'm relaxed and I can walk into the circle and I can, and I know how to do me." So I like that. Do me, be human. Yeah. Thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we kind of often talk about is, leadership style and doing your best, and what does that look like? And, as not just when we interview candidates, but when we interview potential employees, a lot of times people ask, what's your leadership style? Who helped mentor you? All of these types of questions. And the biggest thing that I have learned in the last few years is that I can't be an effective leader if I'm trying to be someone else. I can't be an effective leader if I'm trying to mirror someone else's leadership style. I need to be my own person. I'm best when I'm teaching someone as myself, not as someone else. And I can't be a chameleon or the salesperson trying to give everybody what they want if I'm not authentic myself. And authenticity is the only way that you can do your best, because if you're not authentic, you're trying to do someone else's best. And so for me, that is what feeds into my leadership style. And that's what I gained from previous mentors, because sometimes a mentor also teaches you about how you don't want to be. And that can be an equally valuable lesson in the opposite of learning about how you do want to be. Learning about what you don't want to do or the qualities you don't want to have is equally valuable and important as you develop yourself as a leader.
Yeah, I love that. You do really need to look at both sides of the spectrum, right? And if we put that into your idea of life as a sounding board, you have to constantly or keep making adjustments. If you turn up the volume, you may need to turn down the bass or whatever. You again,
Mhm.
being the whole idea behind being authentic. I love that word. Be authentic. Be authentic. Why do you think people aren't authentic?
I think that for a long time in our culture, we've been taught to work towards some other goal of look at this person or look at that person. The US also drives a huge social media platform, which isn't all bad. It's not all negative, but we have things like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook that has launched this persona of perfection where people can edit and tweak and modify photos that don't even make you look like you anymore. And it creates this false sense of reality that can become so unachievable. And you can post anything and say that it's true. And there's no way to know for sure whether that's real or not. And so, it rocks people's confidence. They see something as obtainable that isn't even real. And so we're working towards achieving a goal that isn't even necessarily possible. And it might be for someone else, but it's not even your goal, right? So I use the example oftentimes when I meet with folks that someone says, I want to run a marathon. And I'll say, yeah, me too, but I'm not going to do it tomorrow. I could post a picture of me running and then wait a year as I've trained to run a marathon and be like, look at what I've done. Here's day one and here's, tomorrow, and say that it was a year or say that it was a day in between when really it was a year. But the truth is the only way I'm going to run a marathon today is if somebody's chasing me. And even then, it's probably not going to be successful. So the truth is that by being human ourselves and encouraging other people to do the same and being uncomfortable or being comfortable being uncomfortable is how we show people that it's okay. And the more we intentionally show people that it's okay, it allows them to feel comfortable being themselves and being authentic and being human. And it's how we can just redivert that piece of social media that makes everyone feel very insecure.
Yeah, a lot of information there. I mean, we talked even before we started this broadcast about being uncomfortable, right?
Right.
And so you said you were kind of nervous, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
This is my 15th broadcast of this particular podcast, and I told you when I started this podcast, I was extremely nervous the first time, and I had done a series of podcasts prior to that. So, right, we've got to push ourselves. We've got to push ourselves in every way. Also, I like your comments about social media, and I say that what I do here is raw. I trip up on words quite a bit. I want people to understand that I trip up on words. I want people to see the real me. So I don't really get in. I don't edit these at all. I've got a dog in my house. Sometimes you hear the dog bark. Because I want people to see the real me.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. With social media, I mean, I see people on social media that I know real well that I'm like thinking to myself, you're not portraying yourself to be real. I get it. You're probably going through some pain, and maybe this is a way for you to deal with the pain. But other people's perception is that you aren't going through pain. And how important is it that if I'm going through pain and I've got somebody that I have a relationship with, rather than they thinking that I've got everything together, if they know I'm going through pain, they could actually come to my aid and come to help me.
Right. Absolutely. And helping someone else understand that I like the real you better. Even if it's not pretty, even if it's not always graceful, even if it's not perfect, I like the real you better.
I love that too. I like the real you better. So I've got my mentor in this industry that I'm in. His name is John Maxwell. He's wrote more books on leadership than anybody else has. His organization trains more leaders than any other organization does. And I was at a meeting once where he was speaking, and somebody came up and said to him, "Hey, John, I want to be you." And John's response was, "Are you willing to go through what I went through in order to be me?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what does that mean to Bob Markovich? What it means to me is what you see is me, the author. You see me, the person on this stage talking to about 1,000 people. What you see as a result of decades of work and decades of stretching myself and decades of being uncomfortable. And then he ended up with this. He said, why be somebody else? You need to be you, because everybody else is taken.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the first thing I thought of when I heard you ask that question is, why would you want to be him when you're already you? And that's great.
Yeah, and again, coming back to that word celebrate, we need to celebrate people for who they are, not who we want them to be or who we think they could be, and helping them on a daily basis push the envelope just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit every day makes a whole lot of progress.
I use this. It's a Japanese word. The word is kaizen, Kaizen. You're familiar with that?
I am, yeah.
and I illustrate it. I tell people to put your thumb and forefinger as close together as you can without touching. That's kaizen, right? We just want to improve a little bit every day.
Right.
Like you said, you can't train for a marathon in one day. Well, you're not going to be successful, right? All right. So let's talk about you personally from a standpoint of personal growth. Do you have a personal growth plan in place?
I do. And I think that probably my personal growth plan looks a little bit different than others just because of our life circumstance. It really has more to do with my children than really myself. So because of our daughter's diagnosis and what we see for her future, really my personal growth plan is to put in place the things that are necessary for her to have a life that allows her to be as independent as possible and for her to experience the most out of life that I can give her and set up all of the things necessary for my son to help her and to give him all of the tools he needs when either my husband and I can't, or quite frankly, when they don't want us to be the primary caregivers anymore. We want them to have everything they need in place to be able to do that. And so we know that likely, just because of the nature of their relationship and our relationship, that our son will likely inherit a wealth of responsibility for areas of her life as an adult. And so we want that to be as easy as possible for him and to start his life off as with as much of a well-rounded foundation as possible. So my own personal growth plan is to plant the seeds now while they're very young at 5 and 7, so that I can enjoy watching them grow and watching them thrive so that we can have that peace of mind and we can enjoy that together. On the professional side, we really want to leave the world in a better place than we found it and in a better place than we encounter today. We want to spread kindness. And I know we've talked a lot about that today, but we also want to really spread an understanding of acceptance over tolerance. And those are two very different things. And the truth is that any person, even the most calloused, jaded, judgmental person that you can think of, is just really one rough day away from needing or being eligible for all of the services that we provide. And despite all of our differences or all of the things that we could disagree on, that person still deserves the same level of kindness and dignity and respect as every other person who is equally like-minded and caring and there for us now. And we don't want to condone necessarily that judgmental or negative behavior, but we can still show kindness and be truthful and compassionate to that person, even though we don't agree with them. So that is kind of a little bit about my personal and my professional growth plan. But ultimately, our goal is to leave the world a better place for our children and for our communities than where we found it.
So what I hear you say is you have to be intentional.
Yes, absolutely.
And so you try to take a look into the future.
Absolutely. So, and for us, building those foundational blocks is financial, right? It's a reality of caring for an individual with a disability is that care is expensive. And so we have to plan to set aside funds for respite care and housing and medical expenses and all of those types of things. The other factor is that we also, while we want those financial needs to take care of, we want the fun and joyful and quality of life, right, to be there as well. So making sure that there is funds set aside for fun, right? And tools and resources to be able to enjoy family and to enjoy travel and leisure and help her enjoy the things that she and my son love most. And so, and being able to do that with them. My daughter absolutely loves water. How do we build that into her life? How do we help ensure that she gets to go to the beach and enjoy the lakefront here in Lorraine and do so safely and all of those types of things? So intentionally planning, not just for the responsible financial pieces, but intentionally planning for a joyful, full, well-rounded, holistic life.
So what would your advice be to somebody who's listening to you and they're saying, well, she had this situation put into her lap, which is creating her to go out and be intentional. All right. And what would you say to them that may not think that they had this situation placed into their lap where they have to be intentional? Why would somebody want to be intentional about their planning and personal growth?
I think that the hardest part of realizing it is it's terrifying. It is scary to realize that you can't just fly by the seat of your pants. In the most candid way to say it, I guess. But planning for it and creating a structure is worth every single moment of it. Being able to see how that plays out and see, right? It's like building a house and seeing it come together. Seeing the foundation poured allows you to be able to see the strength that your house is going to have. Being able to see the framework go up and the trusses go up to a house allows you to see how strong it's going to be and how safe and secure it's going to be. Does it mean it's invincible? No. But it gives you a sense of security and it gives you a sense of comfort and a sense of strength to know that that's something that you contributed to and you built. It's scary to start. It's absolutely scary to start, but it allows you to understand and have value in your ability as a parent and in their worth as a person to give back to their community, to participate fully in life without having to worry about the basic essential needs.
So it's almost as if taking the time to plan, taking the time to look at the future, taking the time to look at the stepping stones to get there, it's almost as if you are giving yourself freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's peace of mind. It's freedom. It's you can use a number of different examples. Kind of sticking with that same house theme. It's safety. It's security. It is the place that brings you warmth and knowing that as I age and I can't do this anymore, hopefully, knock on wood, we've got decades and decades before that ever even becomes a conversation. But knowing that if we work hard now, we won't have to work hard later. And that we'll be able to enjoy those golden years with her as an adult in a way that allows us to be her friend and allows us to have a different type of companionship and relationship with her, and allows us to know that she's going to be well taken care of and our son is going to be well taken care of, and that they will have the stepping stones in place to be able to guide them through their adulthood. It does not mean it will be easy. It does not mean that it will go without falter and they're not going to have things that come up that go awry, but that they will have the foundation needed to be able to handle it in a way that works well for them.
So let's go back prior to you being married.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Were you a planner then? Were you thinking about your future? What was your life like before?
Yes, I was a type A person then. I was a planner then, probably not nearly to this extent. Depending on who you talk to, was I a person who liked to be in control? Yes. if we're being really candid, that type A personality, the control personality, yes, I do. I like to have structure and routine. I like to know what to expect and to be organized. I think that for me personally, it's how I make sure that things don't get missed and how I can make sure that I'm doing the job, whatever the job is, right? Being a housekeeper, being a good employee, being a good friend, right? Those are the things that I can do well if I know what is expected of me. And by being organized and structured, I can know what to expect. So those are things, just getting to know myself, that bring me the sense of security and knowing that I can do those things well.
Okay. So again, to that type A personality, or if you're a DISC person like I am, the DC type of a personality, a dominant driver with organizational habits, how do you deal with so many things that are outside of your control?
So in our household, we call it rolling with it. And it doesn't mean that you just let everything fly off the wagon, right? But you hold on to what you have. You know that eventually it will stop. And you hold tight to the things that are the most important. And your plan is to pick it up when you stop and put it back together and keep going.
Hold on to what's important.
Mm-hmm.
Said that. Pick it up and put it together.
Yep. And then keep going. So when everything else falls apart, that's the plan. Hold tight to the things that are most important. Pick up the pieces when all the dust settles and just keep going.
So we have to understand that when things fall apart, when things happen that are outside of our control, it's not failure.
No, not at all. To me, really, truly, the only thing that defines failure is forgetting what matters in the first place. If you forget what matters and you start chasing the wrong thing, that's the failure.
Right. Okay. So everybody fears failure, right? You defined you defined failure excellently.
Well,
right?
Thank you.
Yep. You defined it excellently. So then how do you have that conversation with somebody that says, "Hey, look, I think this is what I need to do. I don't want to fail. I'm nervous about stepping forward. So how can I create a mindset so that I am comfortable being uncomfortable?"
So I think I want to make sure I'm understanding the question. So we're kind of talking to other, how do you talk with folks about I want to chase this possibility. How do I do that?
Sure.
Okay. I think understanding that, one, a dream can change, and that is okay. It's not a failure. It just means that it's not what you thought it would be. And that happens often. And that taking this type of leap, whether it's starting a business or buying a house or having kids or any of these kind of like big life changes, are scary. But if it's really what you think you want, it's absolutely worth it. And there will be things that go awry and you'll question it and it will not go according to plan. But that in the end, if it is where you're meant to be and what you're meant to be doing, it will happen. Might not look like what you imagined. It might not be exactly what you thought it would be, but it'll happen. And if it doesn't, then something else will be sparked inside you that is really where you're meant to be and really what your calling is supposed to be. I thought I had my calling. I thought in a previous career path, that was what I was meant to be. That was where I was going to be forever. And I was wrong. And that's okay. Because here I am now, and this is awesome. This is amazing. This is so much better than I ever thought it would be. And even 2 years ago, when my husband and I, my husband works from home, he and I were hanging out in our house while our kids were off going to school. If you would have asked us if our life would look like this with onboarding our 15th employee in 2 years, we probably would have laughed because it wasn't what we thought our dream was. But here we are now, and it's incredible. And it is exactly where we feel like we're supposed to be.
So in episode 8 of Life of Leadership in Lorain County, I interviewed a fellow by the name of Bob Campana. Do you know Bob at all? Do you know Bob?
We
Campana?
have met in passing, but I don't know him well.
Okay, get to know Bob well, because Bob is a great guy, and he would love a conversation with you. So Bob Campana, who is again your classic Type A personality, he's got a focus, he's driven. And I'm sure if you would have taken a look at what his quote unquote dream was 10 years ago and what his dream is today, it would be completely different, or it would be somewhat different, right? I think even if we try to create a dream that's outside of our realm of thought, we don't go far enough, because, if this is my dream, and I achieve that dream in 5 years, it's not time to quit, right? It's time to reassess the dream. So Bob, on an annual basis, reassesses his dream. He reassesses what his paths are, reassesses what his milestones are. Now you can take, when you're closer to your objective, you can take a better look at the objective, and you can take a better look at the path that you're taking to your objective. If I'm classic leadership, what I do is I talk about what do you want to look like in 10 years, right? But if 5 years from now, you may have already achieved that, or you're going in a totally different direction.
Right.
So we need to reassess, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So how often do you reassess?
Honestly, in the last 2 years, it's been every couple of months. So really, when we first started this endeavor, we thought that it was going to be 3 or 4 of us and maybe a couple of part-time folks. And we were going to serve 2 or 3 counties. And since then, that dream has gotten exceptionally larger. We serve all of Ohio. We have 15 year-round employees, and we have several dozen seasonal staff. And so we really achieved probably our 10-year goal in about 12 months. And so we have continuously just reassessed, and we changed that dream of this is what we want to look like in 10 years in terms of number of staff or number of employees or number of sites and partners and those types of things, to how do we address the need? How do we evaluate the need for a community, and how do we address that need and define that as the goal met? And so in that way, that's how we continue to reassess. And we do that on an as requested basis or as an as needed basis. so that we can just make sure that we're not evaluating the wrong things, not evaluating for us the dollars earned or the number of staff or the number of goals. We don't have a brick and mortar building. We don't plan to have a brick and mortar building because we want to meet in the communities where our people are living and want to work and want to engage in their community. And so by us not having a building, it allows us to be able to meet them where they are and meet businesses where they are. And so for us, it meant reassessing how we assess that success in the first place, if that makes sense.
So if somebody wants to have a conversation with you or wants to talk to you about some of the needs that they might have or how they could help you, how would they get a hold of you?
So they can give us a call. Our main agency line is 440-320-7439. They can also visit us online and fill out a contact form at youbelongohio.org, or they can email me at amy@youbelongohio.org.
All right. So I'm looking at your webpage right now. It's a beautiful layout. It's got a lot of information on there. You know, you've got success stories. You got a list of success stories. I mean, these are just great things that people should take a look at. So I would encourage everybody to go to youbelongohio.org and take a look at that. Take a look at that website and see some interesting things. So believe it or not, we're 52 minutes into this puppy. Time goes quick, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to collect your thoughts. I'm going to break away. I'm going to thank my sponsors, and then we're going to come back to you, and I'm going to let you put a nice, tidy bow around this and give us some of your sage advice. Whatever you think, that you want to reestablish of what we talked to. So I'm going to break away real quick and give you a couple minutes to compose your thoughts, and then we will be back.
All right. Thanks.
So again, thank you for joining in to Life of Leadership in Lorain County. We try to broadcast these on Tuesdays at 6:30. What I want to do is I want to thank my sponsors. First of all, I want to thank Brian Jankowski. Brian is with BCT Alarms. He is your local security provider. Reach out to Brian. I always talk about the fact that I love that I can control the security of my house from my cell phone. There's so many different devices that he can install around your house, and you can work everything through your cell phone. If you're a business owner and you want to give people access to the office, you can do that with the cell phone. So it's really cool, the technology. I also want to thank Gary and Renee Tillett. They are the owners of WOBL and WDLW. I want to thank them for all the support that they give me. I also want to thank the Morning Journal. The Morning Journal is really a supporter of Life of Leadership in Lorain County. And what we want to do is we want to support local community businesses, help our community grow by supporting them financially. So again, thanks to my sponsors. And now we're going to turn it back over to Amy. So Amy, give us what is your sage advice to close this out?
So I ultimately would like to say thank you, Bob, for having me. I appreciate your time. I would also like to say thank you to Mark Phelps of Action Coach for encouraging me to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, as we talked about today. I'd also like to say thank you to Paul Hollander and Eric Hibinger for believing in me and this dream. Ultimately, please remember that you do belong, to be kind and to be you, that no one else does it better. And we are here for you to help you as you need to reach your employment goals. Thank you.
Amy, it was a wonderful time. Thank you so much for being part of the broadcast. Thank you for your time, and thank you for what you're doing in the community and in bringing awareness as well. So that's awesome. So thanks for all that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.